because I believed him. I believed all of the words that he was saying about me. And yet then there was something else inside of me that I thought, well, if that's the case, then how come other people like me? If that's the
Yeah.
case, how come I have all of this love and compassion? And what I learned later was that empathic spirit that I had, that I was really able to put myself in someone else's shoes. And so I thought, how can I be all of those things that you said that I am, and also be this? And so, yeah, I really had to challenge that. Thank you for having me.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I went through life-threatening, life-altering burnout in 2016 and 17. Our youngest is a multi-diagnosed special needs child. She's an adult now, but like still very much like a child. And I burned out, and seriously burned out, and sort of all the trauma that I grew up in my childhood, and then went right into marriage, and then having neurodiverse children. It all accumulated into, there was no space for me. I didn't even know that I needed to create space for me until I fell apart. And so my journey started in 2016-17 when uh, I had no choice. Either I was going to, my body was going to die, or I was going to find a way to include myself in my life. And I didn't want to give up my family. And so I learned how to create that space for myself at our table without sacrificing my family to do it. And so facing all the trauma, facing all of the brokenness and all of those old stories in my life, as well as continuing to be a part of my family, was what my story is. And then in 2020, when COVID hit, all of our daughter's therapies were canceled, and so I had to pivot again to find a way to be what she needed in that time, without going backwards myself. And so that got me into an emotional intelligence training, astrology training, and then I got into women-centered coaching, and then I went back to school for that. And now I'm building my own coaching business, Beacon of Hope, heart-centered coaching, for women that are overwhelmed and overstretched, and they do not want to sacrifice their families to make room for themselves. And I show them how to do that. So that is essentially what my story is now, that um, I want to shine that beacon of hope brightly so that others can ignite their own light inside of them that they may have never even known was there, or has been snuffed out by someone else, or something else. And for me, I grew up with a very spiritual and narcissistic abusive father, and that was where it started for me. Was I was broken coming into adulthood, and I wanted to break that cycle and to make it different for my kids, and I had to learn how to do that. And now I
Yeah.
want to do that for other people.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, Christine, thank you for joining us today. I didn't get to introduce you, but anyway. Okay, so let's just go back a bit. So you say your father
Yeah,
was abusive. When did you discover that that was not normal?
that's a really good question. I think that I hid it for so long that I didn't understand that it wasn't normal until I really started to get out and see what my friends' parents were like, and realizing, like, oh, not everyone was terrified of their dad. Not everyone had a mom who was desperately trying to appease everything. Um, and so then when I started to look at that as a preteen, I didn't understand why it was different. My dad was a minister, and so he was like the savior of the community, and yet at home, it was the total opposite. And so you had to toe that line between, oh my gosh, your dad is so wonderful, to you have no idea what it's like to live with him. And you couldn't say any of that. You couldn't acknowledge any of that. And so the smile went on your face, and that duality was very, very real. And it was extremely painful until it just got too much and I left home. And I really had to be on a journey to figure out what did it actually mean, because I believed him. I believed all of the words that he was saying about me. And yet then there was something else inside of me that I thought, well, if that's the case, then how come other people like me? If that's the case, how come I have all of this love and compassion? And what I learned later was that empathic spirit that I had, that I was really able to put myself in someone else's shoes. And so I thought, how can I be all of those things that you said that I am, and also be this? And so, yeah, I really had to challenge that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the hardest part. That's probably why you're doing the emotional intelligence, because your parents didn't have that. And so you're like living in two worlds. You know, you have to put the smile on your face and act like life is great, when inside that you can't, you're like so totally disconnected from everybody, because you can't speak to others about it, because they'll also gaslight you. They'll also say, oh, he's nothing like that. So you get gaslit from both sides. And then you start thinking, well, there must be something wrong with me.
Yeah.
It's okay. So you left school, you left home. How old were you when you left home?
So I actually graduated school, and then I left at 19. And I moved away, and I got a job. And I started to piece together different things. And that was when, once I got away, was when I was able to start sounding alarm bells to anyone that would listen to me, that there was something very, very different. And, you know, he was a dangerous man. And it really fell on deaf ears to most people in the community, because he was just so amazing outside of the home. And no one else in my family really wanted to speak up. No one wanted to corroborate what was going on. And I get it, because they were still in it. And at the time I didn't get it. I didn't understand why won't somebody say, yeah, you're right. And so then, it just went more to that gaslighting, that I must be really crazy here, that that I'm seeing something that no one else seems to be seeing. And I laugh, not so much that it's funny. It was just, when I think back to that time, the desperation that I had, like I just didn't want to give up. Like there was something inside of me that I just knew that something was terribly wrong, and I needed to find a way to get others to see it somehow.
You know what? I've just got chills through my whole body, and I'll tell you why. Because if you're a light worker and you've come here to do work, we're all planted in these families, isolated from everybody else, and you'll never fit in, and your family won't understand you, because you kind of see through the facade. You question it and say, this isn't right. This family's not right. I mean, I remember when I was, 3 or 4, I told my parents they're not my parents. I knew I didn't belong in this dysfunction. It just didn't feel right. Even though I looked like my mother, I think like my father, it felt like I was some alien that got planted here, and like, what am I doing with these people?
Oh my gosh, me too.
You know? And that's why, because they don't understand you. It is like you are totally foreign. You're like put in this family environment, and it's like do or die. So obviously you did do, because here you are.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you say your daughter, is she neurodivergent as well, or what?
She is, yeah. So my children are now, it's hard to believe, but they're 25 and 22. And our oldest, while undiagnosed formally, we're fairly certain is on the autism spectrum, but definitely more on the side that it really just shows up in relationships and how to deal with people. And
So she got Asperger's.
yeah, and so like the thing with her is that once we found out with her younger sister, and our youngest is multi-diagnosed, she has like 10 different diagnoses, and anywhere from autism and intellectual disabilities to sensory processing and auditory processing, and then she has the complex genetic syndrome as well, and so then she has a wheelchair, and there's all sorts of significant challenges with her. And so our oldest, she really started to study it and to figure it out, and she has built her own tribe of people and is going to school and working, and has really learned not only how to help herself, but she also works with families with kids on the spectrum so that she can help them. And so yeah, that's how it is with my kids.
I find people that are like you and I have got those children because they came through as the family line. But now,
Yes.
okay, so now I've got a question. Do you think it's that they are necessarily autistic, or do you think it's part of the new age of kids that are coming in? Would you think it's, you know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yes.
yeah.
Go ahead. Say more. Like, say more into that.
Is it like, because, it could be the food, it could be the diet, but I mean, I fed my daughter, I fed my son the same food as what I ate, so can it really be that? I don't know. I don't think so. I think they're just more attuned. That would be the word. So, but there is something. I mean, they are very good in some area of the brain and other other area not so good. On the social side, they are both struggling a lot. So, yeah. What do you think? What do you think that is? Do you think it's a wave of children coming in?
Yeah. I actually think it's a complex question. I think that there's no easy answer. I do know that their brains are wired differently. And there are people that say, oh, it's a different ability, it's not a disability. Then there's others that it's a disability in that they cannot function in society without extra supports. And they may never be able to. And I think that we need to acknowledge that for some people, and to understand that while they may have some different abilities, in order for them to be safe in a society that doesn't understand them, they are going to need those extra supports. And it weighs heavily on us as parents when what happens to them after we go? Who is going to take over and love them the way that we do and interprets the world for them and them to the world? And I think that that is a very real part that there isn't an easy answer for. And I also think that there are people like our oldest that while their brain is wired differently, they are able to adapt in a way that they can show up in society. And maybe they're quirky and they're different in areas, and they can be independent. I know that I can leave our oldest somewhere and she's fully dependent and can figure it out, where our youngest can't. She can't dress herself. She can't look after herself. She needs to have that. And so do I think that foods and environment and all of that stuff play a part in it? Yes, I do. Do I think that all of us have our own quirks and our brain is wired differently? Absolutely. And do I think that we need to acknowledge that sometimes it's a lot more than that? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I just find it interesting because
me too.
it wouldn't just be one factor, but I mean, it's now more than ever. And I'm sure there were ADHD children or whatever you want to call it, Asperger's, when I was at school. It just wasn't recognized, but not to the extent that it is now.
Yes.
So, yeah. Okay, so tell me your burnout. Let's get there. What are the symptoms of burnout? So how would somebody know? Like, is it just you can't get out of bed?
Well, For me, it actually started a couple of years before that. It was sort of like this, a slow drain. And I actually wrote it out in the book that will be published, The Ripple Effects of Impact, that I called it my shipwrecked to Lighthouse Beacon, in that it was sort of like this slow decline, that while I knew that something was going on with me, I had seen enough trauma and I had built enough resistance that I just thought, I can make it through this. And what happened for me, though, is I started to get reckless after hours, I called it. I was drinking alone a lot at night after everyone was in bed. I was crying a lot. The stress and anxiety was just taking its toll. And then I had to be on. I had to, because I had this daughter that relied on me, and my husband was working all the time. And so I had to be functional, and I kept pushing through and pushing through until the moment that I called it this tsunami that just hit me and took me out. And I didn't know if I was going to come out of it. And at the same time, I had to, because I had this family that was relying on me, and we were moving at the time. And so it was a whole lot of symptoms for me. My hair was falling out. My nails were brittle. I couldn't keep any food in me. I was crying all the time. And then eventually it got to where I couldn't get out of bed, and my body physically couldn't do it. And my husband had to take some time off work. And that was when I went to the hospital. And what changed my life was actually the ER doctor there that said, there's enough that's showing that your adrenals and your liver and your kidneys and your thyroid, nothing was working properly, and nothing was diseased, so they couldn't help me. And he said, you need to find a natural path that is going to walk you through this, or you're not going to be here anymore. And that's what woke me up. Like I needed to find mental help. I needed to find spiritual help, and I needed to find physical help, and I needed to keep going for my family. And it was in that moment that I thought, if my family matters to me, then I have to matter to me. And that was a new concept. I had to matter. And until that point, I thought that I had to prove that I had value by being these things to other people, until my body could just stop working properly. And that's what happened. And
Yeah.
so I don't know if that totally answers your question, but it was a very slow slide until it just stopped. And I literally felt that I was drowning underwater, and that there wasn't anyone else to save me, that I really had to get my hand above the water. I really needed to make someone aware that I was drowning, so that I could get help.
You know what it's like? You had to get to that realization that you do deserve to also have help. You always help everyone else, but not you.
That's right. Yeah.
I often say to my clients, because I work with women in toxic relationships, that why is it that you have to love somebody else so that they can love you back? Why can't you just love you? Why do you need to have a middleman?
Yeah. Yeah. What came out of that for me was a few things. One was the power of the and. I needed to have a way to hold these dual thoughts as both valid and important in my life. And so I really had to take out the but, and I needed to say, yes, I was very traumatized. Yes, I had to go into some sort of survival adaptation. Yes, there is so much in me that needs to be fixed, and I'm lovable. I don't have to do anything to be that. And I have value. I am valuable because I'm me, period. I don't have to be anything other than that. And that power of the and for me created this space in which I could start to heal. I could start to unpack all those old stories. I could start to unpack all these beliefs that, do I believe that? Is that really my belief? And then to figure out why it is or why it's not, and to create that space in which I could stand on my own outside of being and still be a wife and a mom. I didn't want to not be that. I just wanted to also be myself. And I needed to figure out what that was. And I mean, that came, in my 40s. And what's beautiful to me is that, especially my oldest at 25, she's one of my closest friends. And I love all of her friends in that they see that and they're figuring that out for themselves in their 20s. And they're figuring out their own identity for themselves. And I'm like, yes, if that is what I can do for someone else, that they can figure that out before they get into their 40s, how awesome is that? And I can also help people that are like me, or even people that are older than me that are still like, I have a deep yearning inside, and I don't want to give up the life that I have in order to find it.
Yeah. Well, that was going to be my next question, because, you spend 19 years at home and then you spend the next 90 years trying to heal from it. How long does it take? How long did it take for you to get out of that burnout stage? Because you first have to find the right person. It's a multi-dimensional approach.
Definitely. So for me, I married my childhood best friend who we'd known each other since we were 11, and he was one of the only people that knew the inside of my family, and he loved me. And so after getting out of abusive relationships in my teen years, Chad and I got together when we were 20. And so I had that, and then I had to learn how to create the marriage that I wanted instead of what I had been brought up to know. And so that journey, there are times I will say he was that rock as I fumbled for years with mental health and postpartum psychosis and all sorts of things as not understanding trauma. And then it was really it was just before our burnout when my husband said, I can't do this anymore. I can't love you enough to make you love you. You're going to have to love you, baby. And at the time, I was so angry at him. And really, that's what I needed. Because our love has shifted since that moment. That now that I can love myself, for the first time, and I remember the first time when I started that shift into loving myself, his love was deeper. I actually could feel his love just because he loved me, not because I had to do something. And so to answer your question, how long it took through the burnout, it was really, so it started in 2016, 17. It was the end of 2017 when I started a 1-year shamanic journey, and I got some Reiki certification. I delved deep into therapy as well. And then, chaos didn't stop in our family as our youngest attempted suicide, and there was different things in that time as well. But something massive shifted in 2020 for me at the beginning of COVID when I said, this will be my launch pad. And so then it's been just this last year when I've started to launch my business, and I got my website, and I've written this story, and I'm doing all of these things. So I would say that really from 2018 till now has been truly my unveiling, or that unfolding. I don't think that we're ever finished growing and transforming. And with that being said, I don't think that we're not in the cocoon for all that time. We are learning to fly. We are learning to feed ourselves. We are learning to explore the world after that. And so I really think that it was between 2018 and 2022 that
Yeah.
I was deep in the um, that cocoon and really figuring it out. And another point for that, my dad. So I didn't have any contact with him for about 15 years or so, other than at siblings' weddings, and he wasn't allowed to have contact with my kids either. And he died in 2021, and it was during the COVID thing. And I don't know if I would have gone to the funeral anyways. However, what happened was that I did the virtual funeral, and something amazing came out of that for me. First, um, none of his kids spoke. He wasn't really acknowledged as a father and grandchild, but the people in the community spoke very, very highly of him. And I used that power of the and for the first time with my dad, that he could be both. He could be this powerful, influential person in the community and this narcissistic father that, for whatever reason, that's who he was as a husband and father. And I do not have to justify anymore. It just is. And I could also allow all of those people that he had an impact on to have their story too. Theirs isn't not valid any more than mine's not valid. And that did this very deep healing in me, that both is possible. And it was okay. I was okay. My family was okay. And then I also learned for myself, everybody deserves love and compassion and empathy. And I don't have room in my life to show those things to narcissists. And that's okay. There are other people in the world that can, and they can do that. And it was almost like this weight was lifted, that somehow I was this horrible person for cutting him off. And I tell you, like, there was no one that understood what I did. They're like, he's your dad, and blah, blah, blah. And I felt that I was always having to justify. And in that moment, I was like, I'm okay. It's okay. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve compassion and love. It's just not going to be from me. And there are other people that clearly love him and can show that compassion to him. And that's good, because everyone deserves it. It's just not going to be from me. And I have zero tolerance in my life for that. And that's okay. And I think that also was a huge part of my healing for me, that I was able to hold that duality with love and acceptance. And I felt empowered in my forgiveness by the power of the and, that both could be possible.
Yeah, that's huge, because forgiveness is like the end. You don't have to keep carrying it anymore. It's like freedom.
Right.
I don't have to do that anymore. I can be whoever I want to be. I'm not beholden to somebody else. I'll let you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and your siblings, do you still speak to them, or?
Some of them, my brother and I, so there's 6 of us, and my brother and I are very close. And then I have, what does that make? 4 sisters. 4 sisters. And I would say that we're a couple, I would say I'm pretty close with. And then there's also a couple that we don't see eye to eye on things. And again, what I've learned in all of that is that love and compassion is there for everyone. And it doesn't mean that we need to see eye to eye. And for so many years, I felt that I wasn't loved and that I didn't belong. And now that I realize we're all loved and we all belong in our own way, and it doesn't mean that we have to understand each other, and it doesn't mean that we have to agree. And so I don't talk to all of them regularly. I have a couple of sisters that I would say I talk to a few times a year. And my sister-in-law and my brother, I would say, are the closest. And I talk to them pretty much every day. And we don't live close either. Like um, you're in South Africa, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I live in Canada and they live in a province over than I do. And so it's like over an hour flight and it's like a 12-hour drive. So uh, it's more phone, and my brother and I, we get together probably 4 times a year, I'd say. So
Yeah. So now tell me, when you went on your spiritual journey, how was your relationship with your husband? Because I know it can put a bit of strain on the marriage.
yeah. So my husband is one of these amazing people. And I know that it was very, very hard on him. It was hard on him to see me so broken and that he couldn't fix it. And it was hard for me to, I was needing that healing and trying to explain to him that he was probably one of the only constant things in my in my life, and I had to do this alone. I had to go on this journey on my own and trust that we could find a way to weave it back when I had completed that journey. And so it was challenging. It was challenging because I desperately wanted to let him know, and I didn't know how to. I didn't know how to communicate um, the depth that, like, the only way that I could say it to him was that it's almost like my DNA had been damaged. And the spiritual journey was about repairing that. And he kind of looked at me like, okay. And I'm like, no, it's a cellular level response. Like, you believe everything and yet you don't believe it. And you're at this constant war within yourself and having to make peace with that. It is a very lonesome journey. And so during that time, it was very hard to communicate what was going on for me.
Yeah. Well, it's the hero's journey.
Yes,
You
it
know, I
is.
mean, it's the story of two journeys. One is I need to get here, I need to go from here and do this. And the other one is who am I becoming in the process?
Yes. What is really amazing now that I've done all this is that it's actually created a container in which he can do that too. And so
Yeah.
now he's starting to realize things that he had totally blocked out. And it's pretty awesome now that I get to hold that container in which he held for me, um, and know that we will be stronger on the other side, and that he has to go through these things on his own. He needs to figure it out, for himself. And it's a very beautiful thing, and at the same time it can be challenging to navigate, for sure.
Yeah, it is. And there's no roadmap. Hindsight is great, but at the time, I
Oh
wish I
man,
knew
it's
that.
so true. Yeah.
But no, that's good because at least you've got each other and you're willing to be there for the long haul. Because I know it can really damage the relationship if somebody feels threatened or they say, I don't know you anymore. Who have you become?
Yeah.
And the truth is, um, like you say, you have to do it alone. You can't do it for someone. You could say, I'll be here. I'm not going anywhere,
Yeah.
but I can't do it for you. And like your husband said to
Yes.
you, he can't make you happy. You've got to make you happy.
Yeah.
I often say to my clients as well, I say, narcissists, when they walk in the room, they say, look, here I am. I'm just so special because I breathe and I exist. I don't have to do anything. I just need to breathe. And the person in their space has to do all the time. You're constantly trying to earn that love, constantly trying to get that attention. And that's your, like you say, your survival response.
Yeah.
So how's that changed now? How do you relate to people differently? Would you still find yourself going in that pattern every now and then?
I
Is
definitely
it
find myself
explain?
going in that pattern every now and then. And I think that was why, so interestingly enough, I got very, very good at spotting male narcissists. I had to learn after uh, meeting a couple of female ones that it can be very different, and that the pattern for me still there to conform to make someone else happy. It was like another layer of healing for me. And for the most part, I would say the biggest difference is that I firmly believe that there is enough room for everyone, and I can also choose who I'm going to allow into my space, and that it's okay not to allow everyone in. And I think that that was something too that I had to relearn, is that just because you're a kind, loving, thoughtful, empathetic person, it does not mean that you can be a doormat for someone else. You can
Yep.
still be kind and caring and empathetic, and boundaries. And those boundaries are there so that you can have open, clear, honest communication and relationship. And without that, you're not going to have that. And so that, I would say that's probably one of the big gifts for me, is understanding that clear boundaries is just as important.
No, you're right. I think that's people's biggest fear. They think if I have to have boundaries, I've got to change. And you don't need to change. You just need to be firm. And like you said, don't justify anything. You don't have to justify why you're firm. You don't have to justify, why you're not pitching up. Because you just aren't.
Exactly.
Yes. Tell me about your book now. You say you're doing a collaboration. Is it just you and Natalie, or is there a few of you?
There's a few of us. So it's with Action Takers Publishing, and it's Kathy Dirksen is our curator, I think. And so there's quite a few of us in the book. I've met a few of them. And the idea is, I haven't actually read everyone else's stories yet, but the book itself is called The Ripple Impact, or The Ripple Effect of Impact. And so what I'm excited about with that is hearing what everyone else's journey has been to making that ripple impact and that effect that comes from making your own ripple. And I think that, speaking of that ripple, I think sometimes we're afraid to make a ripple. We're afraid to be seen because it could be dangerous for us. And what I'm excited about in being a part of this book is we're all stepping into that visibility. We're all stepping in and owning our part of having that effective of impact through making our own ripple. And so I'm very excited to be a part of that and having our voices heard. And I think that's another part of it is, using our voice, telling our story, and being willing to put it out there, because there's got to be other people out there that need to hear it.
Yeah. Yeah. So when is the book out? When will it be released?
So I've heard that it's supposed to be coming. I've heard it's supposed to be coming in June, and
okay.
We haven't heard the exact release date, but the last communication that I had was sometime in June that it'll come out.
No, that sounds amazing. People need it. Hey? I think the world's ready for it. And you're right. People have been afraid to speak out because, we were burnt at the stake and persecuted for lifetimes. And of course, you're not going to want to speak out. You don't want to go there again. But things have changed. Now it's a case of I have to. Because if I don't rise up, we will be overtaken.
That's right.
Then there is no hope. We have to do it. And I think that's where the strength lies. It's like Superman's kryptonite. You've got to build your strength if you want to overcome whatever challenges. You can't just sit in a corner and hope that it's going to get better. And when all the commotion's finished, you'll come out again. It doesn't work like that. You've got to be part of it, part of the change.
Well, and that was part of the reason why I named my business Beacon of Hope, because I believe that it's not just about one person being a beacon. We all have that beacon within us.
Yeah.
We all can be that, you know, and being lined with lighthouse beacons everywhere. And that we all come together and kind of like that Care Bear stare, where we all have our unique gift that we can bring out to make the world a better place. And being a part of that, it just brings tears to my eyes. Being a part of transformation and showing other people how to have that transformation in their lives, that empowerment, that knowing that you can be calmer and more confident amidst the chaos. The chaos in life doesn't stop, but your ability to navigate it gets better.
Oh, yes.
Your empowerment gets stronger. And so it's not this idea that, oh, I find myself in, you know, everything works out. No. But you get stronger in being able to navigate what comes your way, so it doesn't take you out anymore.
Absolutely. And you're right. Everyone has a gift. And it's allowing yourself the space to say it's okay. And we spend our lifetime. This is the problem with the old school. Is I think it was on a TikTok. This boy said, "Look, a car changes its shape, it changes its engine, and every year there's a new model, and there's a new model of cell phone. But the classrooms look like they did 100 years ago." And it just doesn't work anymore. And we've been indoctrinated to do this industrial system and fit in, don't stand out. And now you become an adult and they say, now you must be authentic. How on earth do you be authentic when you've been taught that it's wrong? You're going to get punished.
Exactly.
You didn't read the school textbooks. You were supposed to read those, not your own. You know, it's really hard. And maybe that's what neurodivergence is. It's almost saying, no, we're not doing it your way.
Yeah.
Because we can't.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what it is.
And I do think that neurodivergence, that's what I mean by I don't think there's one answer for everything, because I do think there's so many different ways that people can do it, and this idea of leaving the judgment at the door and allowing things and people to explore, to imagine, to create, to see things differently. There are so many times that I'll say something to my kids and they'll be like, well, that's not what I see. And I used to, when they were really little, be like, well, what is it that you see? Like, come on, just do it this way. And instead learning to actually ask them what they see. And I'm like, oh, like, that is amazing, actually. Like, yeah, let's like that. And I agree with you. There's something really powerful about thinking outside the box and that creative genius that needs to be explored more.
Yeah, because they have the gifts, especially neurodivergent people, children. You know, they are just so sharp. I went to get my computer fixed. I had my cat walked over my laptop screen keyboard, and then my screen went black, and I couldn't get it back for 2 years. I bought a new laptop, of course, and the computer guy said, "No, this is going to take months to figure out. Just throw it away." And I took it to another guy, and he's clearly got autism on. You know, he's clearly on the spectrum, because he wouldn't look at me. He would just look down at the floor. But he tipped it upside down. He took out the RAM memory card and the computer went on. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. He's like, I know, it's just this thing in the BIOS. And I'm like, what? 2 years this thing lay on the table and all you did was take that out. Because he's just got that gift.
That's right.
It's just on another level. I said to him, you should be earning a lot more than what you're earning. You know, he's like the good doctor. But anyway. Okay, so tell me about your coaching. Who do you work with mainly, and where can people get hold of you?
So my website is mybeaconofhopecoach.com. And I mainly work with moms that are overwhelmed and overstretched, and yet they feel that there is some deeper yearning in there, and they don't want to sacrifice their families, and they don't want to rock the boat, and they don't know how to get that. and I show them how, and I walk them through, creating that vision, what it is that they're deeply yearning for, identifying what's holding them back and why they haven't been able to up until now. And then the simple steps of breaking through that and being able to work within the life that you have now and incorporating something for yourself. That there is a way to have both, and for you to step into that. And really, first of all, with that overwhelm, really meeting them where they're at with that overwhelm. Because sometimes it's just a matter of having that space of saying, I'm really overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And really being seen and heard for that. And I think as moms in the world today, everything on TV, all the Mother's Day cards is all like, you do everything for your family. She's such an amazing mom. She sacrifices all of that. And it's like, we're told that we have to be like that. And so what if we don't want to? What if we don't want to sacrifice everything? What if we want something else outside of being a mom? And there's a lot of guilt there. And whether you're a working mom outside the home or a working mom in the home, or the working mom in terms of being a stay-at-home mom, we all experience that same guilt. We all experience the same pressure. We all experience the same overwhelm. And so that's who I work with, is being able to release that toxic guilt, to come through the overwhelm, and to be able to meet your own deepest yearnings while nurturing your family and loved ones.
Yeah, and that's needed. That is. And you're right about the guilt. It's like one of the main things I hear from my clients, even when it comes to leaving their narcissistic partner, because they feel bad. And I said, but he laid his bed. He created this. You didn't.
Yeah.
You would never have left had he not done. And I say he because they're mostly female clients, but
Yeah.
It works both ways. I've also had male clients,
does.
but they're the ones who caused you to want to leave.
Yes.
Why are you feeling guilty for their behavior? They must own it.
That's right.
Yeah, and it is. And I think it all boils down to self-worth.
Yeah. It does.
The day you decide.
And being able to, exactly, because I think building our own identity, really understanding our self-identity and who we are,
yeah,
is a critical part to that. Because so often we attach these labels. And so, like, what's a good mom? What's a bad mom? Are you a bad mom if you feed your kids pizza and stop at McDonald's? No. And at the same time, a lot of us feel like we are. And so this idea of knowing who we are, so that we can start to actually see the truth of that, instead of bringing on all these false stories that we take on.
Yeah. Well, it's time. The world can't continue the way that it's been going, because look at it.
You don't have to look very far to see the chaos out there.
No, not at all. So do you have a message for our viewers that are watching?
You matter. You really, really matter, and you are worth it. You are worth the energy. You're worth the love. You're worth the value. And you are here to shine. The world needs your own authentic voice. Messy, amazing, grand, great, all of it. The world needs you.
I love that. Thank you. So, yeah, thank you so much. I will share all your links below.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much.
I will send you, thank you. And I will send you the Facebook and Instagram and my website as well. So.
Perfect. All right. Well, good luck with your book. Right. Let me know when it's out. Maybe we can post it on there as well. We'll add it on.
Yeah, that would be amazing. All right. I will let you know. Cool. Thank you.
All right. Enjoy your day.
All right. Thank you. You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.